today we're going to be talking about the Behind the SME podcast, and I'm going to ask Adam, our host, a couple of questions. Alrighty, so Adam, tell me about the podcast.
Sure. So I guess the genesis of the podcast came from a recognition that I think you and I had, that there's a lot of business podcasts out there, but a lot of them are quite, let's say, tailored towards larger organizations. You know, the big podcast names that we'll all recognize get big names on, big CEOs of big companies. And I listen to those podcasts and I'm fascinated by the stories, but I walk into the office on a Monday morning, and although the concepts are interesting, actually the ability to apply anything that I've learned from that hour or sometimes 2 hours is quite limited. So, we decided that actually let's make something by SMEs for SMEs where it's, way more practical, way more tangible, and you're hearing stories from people that are doing it. They are day in, day out trying to build something from scratch. And there's just some amazing people out there doing some really cool stuff. And I just wanted to share some of their stories, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like you want to be able to come out of listening to a podcast and have like a to-do list, 3, 4, 5 things that you can apply to your job today or tomorrow.
Yeah, I was listening to one the other day by Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. And he was talking about a $6 billion investment in their biggest ever, park in Shanghai. And he was trying to open that. And at the same time, there was that terrible story of the child that got taken by the crocodile, and how he kind of managed that situation. I'm going, that is an unbelievable story and fascinating to hear. But I run a small team, and like
I'm going to apply this to
the level
my life.
of applicability is really, really limited. So yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Very nice. And tell me a little bit about the name. Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I'm a big motoring fan, and I'm a big fan of a podcast of a similar name, and it was about getting under the bonnet, right? And so Behind the SME is about finding really what's happening within small businesses. So what I'm going to try and do during the process is not just take someone's first answer whereby they say communication is really important. I want to know, what do they mean by that? And actually, really importantly, how do they communicate with their team? And if they say I do a weekly stand-up, I want to know who's doing that, what's the format, how long is it? I want the detail, because I know from my experience running a small company that there's loads you can learn, and we can all learn from each other. And actually, just that level of detail is really, really helpful, because we all know communication is important, but to what degree?
Yeah.
And how are other people doing it is something I'm really fascinated by.
Yeah, definitely. Tell me about the audience.
So I think anybody that works in, I would say, probably a relatively senior position in an SME. So maybe you run a small team, maybe you're part of a founding team, maybe you're, you work closely with the senior leadership team, maybe you are a senior leader, but you've got you're in that position whereby you can impart some changes, you can build new processes, you can build training programs, meeting structures, that type of thing. And you're on that growth journey. It's for people that are inquisitive, curious, want to learn from others. The people that we interview are not all going to be from exactly the same industry. They're people that, have got a real desire to progress and improve their small business, and are happy to kind of take concepts from other people and try and apply them in their working lives.
Yeah, I would also include probably sort of students or aspiring business owners who are coming up the ranks and they just want to learn, like, how does this actually get done?
Yeah, you're spot on with that. I studied economics at uni and economics at sixth form as well. And I think your understanding of a small business or a business generally is very, very limited. And you can talk about supply and demand till you're blue in the face, and, fiscal policies and macro levers and, all of these things. But actually, what does it mean? Day to day, as you and I know, when you graduate and you land in a small business environment, it's completely different to what you expect. And so giving a bit of framing to that for a younger audience, I think will be really, really interesting. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Especially since, SMEs form something like 95% of the UK's economy. Most people coming out of university, coming out of school, are going into SMEs. So this is really practical for that.
Yeah. And there's over 5 million SMEs in the UK. A lot of people at some point in their lives will either work for one or maybe even own one. You never know. So yeah, it's, I think it's valid for and hopefully useful for a lot of people.
Yeah. Why is this important to you?
Can I say the selfish reason first?
Mm-hmm.
I guess selfishly, I'm on a growth journey as the CEO of a small business, and this is an amazing opportunity to sit down with people that I really enjoy talking to, discussing a topic that I'm really interested in. The fact that it's filmed and there's a microphone, actually, I would probably be having these conversations without, the setup. So I really want to learn, and some of the conversations are fascinating and will be fascinating. So I really want to learn is point number one. And I guess point number two is that I grew a business from scratch with really limited information. It was hard to understand what I was doing right and mostly what I was doing wrong over the years. So yeah, hopefully this fast tracks the learning curve for a lot of people, and they can avoid some of the pitfalls that certainly I and I imagine some of the guests that are on will have made over the years too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me so far, listening to a couple of guests that we've had, it's just been so interesting. It's been such a learning thing for me. Every point I'm like, oh, I'm going to take that away.
Yeah, and actually crazy how two people from a completely different walk of life, size of business, experience, and I can ask different questions. And sometimes there's some really common themes that they hone back in on. You go, that's fascinating. We've got different routes, but we've landed on the same concept. And yeah, really, really interesting. And, it's the running of a small business is an incredibly complex thing. There's no right or wrong answer. And, I think you've just got to absorb as much as you can in the process.
Yeah, definitely. What's surprised you? What's been sort of challenging in this process?
Filming the intro, to be honest. There's a lot of S's in I'm the CEO of a small business and I'm interested in what's driving success.
In SMEs.
In SMEs, yeah. So, developing a Lisp the first time in my life was a bad time for that to happen. So I guess that was quite challenging. I think probably keeping it within a time frame. I actually have to really trim back the questions that I want to ask. And, normally what happens is I prep 30 odd questions and cover 5 or 6. You just want to talk and you want to let them talk. So yeah, keeping it to time has been tricky. And also I really want the outcomes to be really practical. And so making sure that, we don't go down a fairly niche rabbit hole is also important. But yeah, I'd say number one is the number of S's in the intro. Yeah, we should do an outtakes version once.
Another one. So for the listeners, what do you want them to take away from every episode?
So I think, let's say you listen to the episode on a Saturday on a walk or in a car on the way to the office. I want someone to get inspired to do something almost immediately, to go, oh, that's actually really interesting. That person mentioned X. I've never really thought about it like that. And I could do something with that. There are things which people have mentioned across a dinner table to me or I've heard on a podcast that have formed fundamental parts of my business. I take something like our town halls as a really good example. That wasn't my idea, so.
Where did it come from?
It came from a podcast. Yeah,
okay.
It came from a podcast. And interestingly, they were talking about communication and they just said, it's important to spend time away from the desk just with your team. And I went, that's so interesting. We never really do that. We never look up. We never look back. We're very much on the treadmill. And so it was 2019, I think we started doing the town hall cycle. 5 years ago, they haven't changed, as in they might have changed in their shape and longevity and such, but we still do them on the Wednesday after every quarter. And we still do a January one away from the office, off-site, overnight. And, I would say that's part of our DNA as a business, right? So I hope that people just listen to some nuggets and go, I'm taking that forward. I'm going to do something interesting with that. And it becomes part of their business.
Yeah. Do you want to dive into town halls a little bit, just to give a bit of...
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I kind of touched on it. It's really easy, I think, to stay head down, and to be in the detail, individual clients, projects, whatever you might be working on, challenges, etc. Town halls for us are an opportunity just to pause, take stock, and look back at the prior quarter. Quarter is quite a nice length of time, 12 weeks. It's long enough to see changes and see the effects of changes, but also, there's enough cadence there that if there is a slight change in strategy, it's agile enough. One of the pieces of feedback I got early on when I was running Keen Partners was, a small business, changes happen fairly regularly. And I went, interesting. What I'll do is I'll funnel changes and I'll hold them back unless they're urgent, and we'll do them all in one go, like a software update, so we'll hold back any process changes or policy changes or what have you. And then we'll use town hall as a really good opportunity to communicate those. So hold back, we put it on the town hall agenda, and then boom, off they go. And so it was a really nice way of just kind of pushing everything together. Early on, I held the mic a lot. Nowadays, there can be often 2 or 3 town halls in a row where I don't say a single word, and it's the people that are leading teams, leading sub-teams, leading departments that are standing up there proudly talking about their results and talking about their ambitions for the next few weeks and months. So yeah, they've become really important to us. Yeah.
Nice. So a little bit of backwards looking, a little bit of forwards looking, any announcements, and a nice opportunity to bring everyone together just to not be at the desk and do something different.
Always something fun afterwards. Yeah, is typically the structure. So yeah, normally we do our socials that night. Sometimes we're commiserating quarter's results. Sometimes we're celebrating. We've got to get the pitch and the tone right for the town hall. Sometimes, we've got it completely wrong. Sometimes they've been essential, and we learn each time. Yeah.